Hello guys, welcome to Zip Code, and today we are looking at another cup of code. We are talking all things um, PayPal integrations, and we want to see how we can basically utilize Spring Boot to process our payments or transact with PayPal. So this is just the front end of what we are going to be working with. So you'll see that this is a PayPal Spring Boot tutorial. We have a form here with a couple of fields, the payment method, the amount that we want to transact or we want to pay, and the currency that we want to use for that particular payment. And we can basically put a description such as zip code, payment, transaction, something like that. And we can basically pay with PayPal, and we will see our transaction go through. Let's just wait for that to process. You can see it wants us to log in, so I'm just going to log in with the PayPal account that I'm supposed to be paying with, and I log in. It says, hi John, get in your wallet. So this account is a sandbox account within the PayPal developers platform. So I will show you how to set all of these up. So you can see ship to John Doe. So I'm paying to a sandbox account, and you can basically see all the details, the payment balance, the PayPal balance, 5 USD. And then I can basically proceed, or I can cancel this transaction. So if I say cancel and return to store, you will see that it will give me a payment failed, failure occurred or processing payment, please try again. So you can say done, and then come back again, and then you can say zip code, retry transaction. Let's just do that. Pay with PayPal, and again it will come through to process our transaction. Hi John, it doesn't require me to log in again because I already have a session on my login. So now I can just continue to review order, and I click that, and you will see that it will proceed to payment complete, and I can click done, and it takes me back to the home page. So this is what we'll be doing in Spring Boot, and this uses Timeleaf, and just the styling and the form look and feel is basically Bootstrap. So let's go over to our initializer and start our project. So we're just going to do initializer over here, and we will set up our project. As per usual, always take the latest stable version of all your dependencies. The project will be Maven based, language will be Java, and the Spring Boot version, the latest stable version, that should suffice. And we will just update the group to be com.zipcode. We'll call this PayPal microservice, and then we will say like payment processor demo project for Spring Boot, or let's just say PayPal payment processor demo project for Spring Boot. Then packaging will be Java will be 17, that should be fine. We'll add a few dependencies here. DevTools for live reload, also add Lombok, and we will add Spring Web because we are creating a web application. And then let's see what else. We don't need a DB, we don't need liquid base, so we will just use this for now. And also we will have Timeleaf for our front end, and you will see how we're going to plug all of these together in the code base. So let's jump right into the IDE. Once this is set up, you will generate the project and then just extract that into whatever folder you prefer, and then pull that into your IDE, then you should be fine. But then let's jump right into it. I've already set up the project on my IDE, so this is how it looks like, PayPal microservice, and you will see that the main class over here, application with Java, and it doesn't have any special configuration that is plugged in. It's just a generic startup main class and nothing else. And then you will have a PayPal configuration within the configuration package. Let me just expand that a bit so that you can see. So we have a configuration package which has the PayPal configuration, and we have the controller, which has the controller package that has a controller, and our PayPal DTO and our PayPal service. So we'll go through all of these in a few. For now, let's start on the POM, because there are dependencies that you will also need in the POM that you need to add specifically for the PayPal SDK. Let's call it that. So let's go right down, and you will see right towards the end. Right. So the dependency that we will need is the PayPal core from the PayPal SDK, and we will also need the REST API SDK. Again, it's from the PayPal SDK. So this is for us to make the calls to PayPal and be able to receive transactions as we process them. So these are the only two dependencies that you will need, and once those are plugged in, you should be fine. If you want the latest versions for these, just go remove that version. If you're going to pull this from GitHub, just remove that version and do a control space, and then you should see the latest version popping up over there. So on my side, it should be 1.72. Okay, that is taking a while to load, but essentially what you would want is the latest version for that, as well as the REST API SDK. So these two should suffice for interacting with our PayPal account. So now that our POM and dependencies are all sorted, we can basically close this guy, and we can go to our configuration class. So in the configuration class, it's a add configuration bean, and you will have your configuration fields, which is the client ID, the PayPal client ID. We will see how we generate this, and also I'll show you on the developer's account dashboard how you can see all your transactions and the events log as well. So here you'll just set up the client ID, the client secret, and the client mode, and all of these are coming from the application properties. So we'll go check that out in a few. So in here we have a bean, which is the API context, and this API context is coming from the base PayPal API. So if I extend this guy, you will see that it's coming from com.paypal.base.rest API context. So it's coming from the base REST API dependency. And then that context, we just create a new API context with the ID, secret, and the mode that we want to use for our PayPal transactions. And now we can basically have a look at the application properties for all of these values right there. So once we have our bean, we can now use the context to interact with PayPal. So you'll see that in a few. What is it doing now? This machine is something else, right? Let's see if it's going to come back. Okay, now it's back. So we're going to jump into the application.properties or .yaml in this case, and we are running the server on port 8081. The application is PayPal microservice, and we have let's say custom config that is app cancel URL and app success URL, and you will see where we use this. Essentially, these are for our redirects. If our transaction or our payment went through successfully, we want to redirect to a success page on our application. Otherwise, redirect to a cancel page within our application, and hence we have these two configurations over here. And then another the PayPal secret configuration, that is the client ID, the client secret, and the client mode. So these will be provided from the developer dashboard. I will show you how to get those just now. So you'll have your ID, you'll have your secret, and you will have your mode. So mode is which environment you want to run your transactions on. So sandbox is straight to so sandbox test environment. So we can just say this is a test environment, right? And you have live for prod environment, right? So you have two environments. You have sandbox and you have live, which is production. So those are the two modes that you can basically run your transactions for. And now that this has been set up, we can jump into the developer dashboard and see how that looks like. So let's go back to our browser. We go to our developer.paypal.com/dashboard. Even if you are not set up or logged in, it will basically ask you to create an account, log in, and basically then it will take you to this developer dashboard. So in here, what you will see is when you come into this page, it's showing a zip code pay over here. So if you don't have anything here, you will see there will be a default application. So how you set up this application, you can just go to apps and credentials, and then app and credentials. Just wait for it to load. Let me just log back in quickly. Right, let's log in quickly. Right, that's coming through, and you can see the environment over here on my URL sandbox, and that is basically controlled by this flag over here. And you can see my flag is on sandbox, and the live one, obviously there would be some payments set up that you need to maybe subscription that you will need to pay also to use the live environment. But our sandbox should suffice for what we're doing. You can see here REST APIs apps that I have is zip code pay, and I have default application. So over here you have your client ID, your secret that you can use to basically communicate with PayPal and authorize your transactions accordingly. But to set up a new application here, or to get new secrets for your account and things like that, you just go to create app, and it will give you this pop-up over here. And we can basically say, let's call this custom demo payment, something like that. Or this is too long. Let's just say pay dude, right? Yes, like that. So it's a backend, that should be fine. Sandbox account, and basically has a sandbox business account. It will set up all of these. Obviously, this is dummy accounts that are being set up over here. You can just say create app, and it will create the application for you with the client and the secret. Let's just wait for it. Cool stuff. And now you have your display app, PayDude, and you have your client ID and your client secret over here. And if you scroll down, you should get more information or more details, such as your email, your password, and things like that. And you will see more of the accept payments, native checkout SDK, subscriptions, invoicing, and things like that. So essentially what you will need on your in your case, you just need the client ID and the secret. Everything else, it should suffice for what we want to do. So we can go back into our applications and load that new application, PayDude, and with the client ID, you can basically copy this to clipboard, come back to your Spring application, and basically paste that client ID over here. We can essentially just remove this one and paste that, and we can also copy the secret, and we can come here and paste that over there, right? And we save our application. It will basically reload that, and it should transact into the new application. So with the old one, if I go to zip code pay, I will show you the event logs and the errors that are there. So if I click to event logs, let's go to event log quickly. Event logs, API calls, and then here you will see that there's email. Basically, the call type is email. Application, that's the dummy email address that was set up because that's a dummy account or a sandbox account. And you will see here all the calls that I've been making just to test if the payment is going through successfully. And you will see that also if there's a failure, it will be logged, as an error based on the error level, like 400 or 500 or whatever the case may be. But you can basically see all the transactions over here. And basically debug ID, you can go into that and you will see the details of the call that was made over there, the request, you can see there, and you can see the response as well over here, and you'll see all the payload as much as you need. I think this as a debugging stack trace, let's call it that, it should suffice if you want to understand what happened with that particular call. So let's close this and maybe let's go to the 400 as well so that we can see what's happening there. So we can go there. That's the status 400. What was the request? This is what we sent through. Payment process. Currency, we send some garbage data also here. And then we can basically go to response and you will see that currency not found. Because we're using a locale, and I will show you how that looks like within the code, and you will see why we got this currency not allowed exception. So that is basically in terms of debugging and seeing the transactions that came through to your environment, and basically be able to address some queries or some issues that you're experiencing with payments that are going through. But that being said, let's go back to our code. Now that we have our configuration set up, we can basically move into the PayPal DTO. This is because I want you to understand what data we expected to be sending through as a part of our transaction. So let's go to the DTO first. So like as per usual, you have the annotation at data, at builder, at all args, at no args, at JSON, ignore unknown properties. And then here in our DTO, we have a private field of amount, the amount that we want to send, the currency that we want to transact, the method that we want to use, is it a PayPal or whatever the case may be. And then the intent, it's usually sales because we are making a payment, which is a sale. And then the description, and we also pass in the cancel URL, and we also have the success URL. So this is how the payload will typically look like. And if you saw the logs over here, the payload will basically show you what was sent through and what was this was the payment execute. Let's go to the payment itself, the payment creation. You will see the payload has the intent, it has payer information. You will see all this, and you will see the transactions as well, and also the redirect. So you will see all of these in the service once we go in there. But essentially, what we expect is that, and you'll see how we populate the other pieces of the payload. So now that we are done with the DTO, let's go to PayPal service. In the PayPal service, this is a Spring service, and we have a dependency injection of the API context that we were talking about. This will allow us to transact with our credentials to our PayPal account. So first thing that we do, we create a payment with the payment DTO. So this create payment expects the payment DTO as the payload, and it throws a PayPal REST exception. So what we do here, we have we initialize a amount. This amount is what we're going to need to send to our payment. And then on the amount, we set the currency that we're using, which is the payload .get currency. And then we set the total. And that total, you will see that because different currencies follow different as a syntax in terms of floating points or with numbers, or let's say doubles or decimals. So because of that, we want to make the currency float to be dynamic, and we use the for language tag, and that we then pass the we pass in the currency that we're transacting in. And if you saw the 400 that we got over here, this 400 here, it said currency not allowed, and that's because if the currency is not allowed on PayPal side, then you basically get this issue that we got over here. So which means as much as you would want this to be dynamic, make sure that that currency, or you pass in the correct currency that will basically conform to your PayPal transactions. And that is being set, and we now set the total, which is then using the currency for tag and the payload amount dot get amount. That's the amount that we'll be setting over there. Then we create the transaction. The transaction, we set the actual amount, which is what we instantiated at the top here. And then we set the description of the transaction. That's the two fields that we set for a transaction, the amount and the description. Again, this is coming from our payload. And then after creating a transaction, we create a list of transactions and we add the transaction that we want over there. Our PayPal payment expects a list of transactions. So that's why we instantiate a transaction, then we add it into a list, then we're going to pass this list into our payment to be processed. And then once that is set, we then set the payer. And the payer, we set the method, and I'll show you this on how it looks like. So if you go to the front end, you will see that let's go to zip-code pay. You will see that the payment method is PayPal, and we are basically setting that payment on the payer. And then once that is done, we then set the redirect URLs. This is if the transaction is successful or the transaction failed to cancel, then that's what we want. So a redirect to cancel URL, that is what we set. And we also set the success URL. And again, this is coming from the payload, and you will see how we populate all these in the controller. So once the URLs are set, we then get to the final stage where we actually create our payment, which is to be processed. Our payment is a new payment, and that we set the intent, which is a sale. You will see that in the controller. And then we set the payer, which we initialized at the top, or instantiated at the top. And then we then set the transactions, which is the list of the transactions, like I just mentioned now. And then we set the URLs, the redirect URLs, and we pass that redirect object over there. Once we are done, we actually go and create the payment. So we say payment.create, and you will see that this payment.create expect the API context, which is what we already added as a dependency injection, and then that goes into that. And if you go to the import, you will see that the amount is from PayPal API, payer is also from PayPal API payment, and the payment also is coming from there. Payment execution, payment redirect, transaction, and then the API context is coming from base REST API context, and then you also have the payment PayPal REST exception over there. So those are the imports that you need to make sure that they are coming from the correct package, so that you don't have issues when you process your transaction. And now the payment has been created. We have another one which is now executing the actual payment. So first things first is create the payment and then execute the payment. Then it means the transaction ran through successfully. So in execute payment, what we do is we take parameters a string payment ID and a string payer ID, and you will see how these come into play right now, or in the controller as well. So the payment, so we instantiate a payment here, and we set the payment ID, which is just payment.set ID, and we pass the payment ID. Then we instantiate a payment execution, which is now going to execute the payment that we just created. And then on the payment execution, we set the payer ID, and then we execute the payment, and our transaction has now basically concluded. So payment.execute, we pass in the context and we pass in the payment execution, which then will basically complete our transaction. So there's two journeys for our transaction. First is create the payment. Secondly is execute the payment. So create the payment doesn't execute, doesn't mean that the transaction went through, just means that we have logged a payment. Now that payment needs to be processed, and that's where we execute the payment and then it basically goes through as a successful transaction, or if there's a failure, then it will be logged, and you can check it on the events log on this side. And that's about it. So having the service being completed, now we can jump into the final step, which is the controller that handles all our requests. So let's go to that guy quickly. And over here we have a controller, and this controller, you can see it's actually so it's just a controller, it's not a REST controller. We are not expecting a call from an API. However, we are expecting a call from our front end, which is our model, which is our view over here, and that will basically transact into our controller. So the first thing that we have is our dependency injection of the PayPal service, which we just explained now. And then we have the cancel URL from our application YAML, and we also have the success URL from our application YAML. And then we have our first mapping, which is the get mapping of index that will take us to the home page, which is what you see over here. And then after that, we have our post mapping, which is pay. So in our form, we call the pay endpoint, which then takes all of these parameters, and then it will basically process our payment. So the pay endpoint has the request param method, which is the first one here, which is PayPal. And then the second one is the amount that we want to transact. So we can basically transact. We want to transact $15, and we can basically, or British pound or whatever, and then we can say zip code transacts pound, just like that, and that's basically what is going to be taken there. So the amount is that, and then the currency, just like we selected over here, whichever currency we prefer, and then the description that you basically populate on the form. And then once we have all of these parameters, we then set all of those in our DTO. You will see in our DTO we have the amount that we set, and then we also set the method, we set the currency, we set the description, we set the cancel URL, we set the success URL, and we set the intent, which is sale, and then we build our payload just like that. And now that we have our payload, what we then do is we create the payment over here, and that create payment accepts the payload that we just created over here, and what it's going to return is a payment. That payment, we go and check if the links that are returned as part of this payment have an approval URL, and if the approval URL is there, then we know that our transaction was successful. Otherwise, there was an issue, which means we need to return a failure back to the user. So if the link is not null, we want to redirect our application into the link.get href. So this particular link that we're gonna get over here, the approval URL, we want to redirect our application into the link that it has. So the href, which is the actual link, then to redirect to a success or to whatever URL that is there. Basically to be a success because there's an approval URL. And then on the catch, we just log the exception payment failed with the message on our side. Otherwise, we redirect our view to error. So if there's a failure whilst we're trying to process our payment, we just redirect to error, and that's about it. This should actually be just like that. That should suffice. Now that that is done, we then have another one, which is execute. So execute, what it has is execute payment. It has the payment ID, and it also has the payer ID. So over here, we take in these two parameters, and we then execute the payment that we got, which is payment ID and payer ID. Just like we mentioned, if you go there, you will see we have a payment that we set the ID and the payment execution with the payer ID, and we then execute that payment over there. Then once that is done, we then basically get the payment get state equals to approved, If that is approved, actually what we want to do is we don't want to return that. We actually want to return a redirect view. So let's say redirect view, right? Then we can redirect our view to a success or to a, let me just change this quickly. Let's change this. New redirect view. Come on. Redirect view, and we can basically just, let's just go there and we can just do success just like that. And then if it failed, we can just redirect to I think it's error. Yeah, it's not failure, it's error, and we can basically actually we can actually move these all the way down. So if there's a failure, we'll do the same thing. So if it's approved, then we have success. If it failed, then we redirect to that error. So that's fine. Then we have a success mapping. So if the application basically came back with a success, we can just go to success, and over here you will see that we have the payment ID and the approval ID as well. So the success, when PayPal comes back with the success URL that we've set up, it's going to go straight to the success and pass these parameters to that method, and then it will execute the execute payment and return the success over there, and we can basically check for any errors, and we return an error if it failed. Otherwise, we return a success if it's successful. So this endpoint expects the response from PayPal and to redirect to this endpoint. Then if it's a cancelled URL, or if it failed, then it will redirect to this get mapping over here, which is a cancel, and will return the cancel over here. And if there's an error and it failed, then it will redirect to this error over here. So that's about it. And the only thing that is different with the success is once this execution is done, we check for an approved on the state, and we just return that success, and that's about it. So all of these are basically waiting to be called on PayPal redirect. And let's see a transaction right now and see how that will look like. Let's go back into, let's go to the top. Right, so we're gonna process a payment with pay, and let's submit one transaction. So if I click pay now, you will see everything is already populated. Let's say pay, and watch the browser over here. It will go to error, payment error, and error occurred during the payment. Please try again. Let's go to retry, and it takes us back. Let's say zip code retry transaction. Let's just call it that. Let's say pay. Let's see. And it goes to error. Let me see, why is it not happy? So you will have a log here. So we have a 401 unauthorized client application failed. So our credentials look good. So let's go to our application of properties quickly, and let's go there. Let's see what we did. Okay, so whatever that is, let's just go back to the old credentials. Let's save this and restart the application. So that is restarting, and then let's see. And let's right. So the application is restarted. Now let's do 50, or let's do like 20, something like that. And then let's do, yeah, USD is fine. Let's do zip code retry transaction, and all of these failures you will see on the PayPal side. So you will see on the browser it redirects the payment, and it has all of these parameters that it sets for your transaction. So now let's just log in as a payer. Now we're going to log in with that demo account. That looks fine, and and let's say PayPal, right? Go into that. Hi John, greetings, creating your wallet, right? And then now you can see our payment balance, shipped to John Doe, 20 USD. Then we can basically say continue to review order, finalizing paying at test store, and it will basically come back as complete. And you will see that at the top here, it went to the success, and the parameters is payment ID, and it has the payment ID as that, and it also has a token for a transaction, and it also has the payer ID for that particular transaction. And basically this is to confirm that everything went through successfully, and we can click done. So if you go back to our dashboard, let's close this log and go all the way to the top, we should see our transaction over there. So let's go there. We lost that transaction, but you can see that there's a transaction that came through now, and it basically just go all the way. Let me go to let's go to zip code developer, and yeah, this should be fine. Why is it not reloading the new transactions? Let me just refresh. It should come through. Okay, see that I am logged out. Let me log in quickly. Right, let's log in, and we'll see the new transactions that came through. Right, so look at the time. So 18:28, and the time for this transaction 6:27, which is the same as PM. So it's 18:27. That's good. And you can see our transaction, our payment got created, and our payment execution got a 200 OK, so which means that is a success. And the failure that we were getting was from the other credentials that we were using, and they were basically not allowed. But so far, we're able to use the client ID and secret that we had previously, and that basically is able to transact. And we can basically do another one. Let's go and do let's say maybe $8 this time around, or let's make British pound, and let's do zip code, British transaction, something like that. Then let's say pay, and we'll basically see transaction redirects, and it basically gets the wallet. I don't need to log in again because I'm already fine. Then you'll see that this is 10.25 USD. Then you continue, which is 8 British pounds. That's what we sent. And then you will see payment transaction went through. And if you come back to our dashboard, and then we go click API calls, let's maybe go to webhooks, but there's nothing there. We just want to come back to API calls, and we basically refresh the logs. Right, so now we got a new transaction, and you can basically click on the payment debug ID. It will basically show you the payload. Let's go there. You will see the intent is sale, PayPal. We sent British pound, and that was 8. And the description is zip code British transaction, and that is what we sent over here from our front end, and that basically went through successfully. And that is about it with our PayPal integration, and how you can basically use your Spring Boot to make payments to a PayPal account, or process payment using PayPal. I hope this was helpful to you, and I also like to thank the open source community of assisting us in terms of communicating features, tutorials across the board. And so far, I would say please do like and subscribe. For now, cheers.